Welcome back to Whip Check, everyone. This is where we give you the quick lowdown on the important updates happening in the car world.
That's right. And today, we're looking at the 2026 Subaru Solterra.
Yeah, this is Subaru's first go at a fully electric vehicle. And this isn't just a tiny tweak. It's actually the second big update they've given it since it launched, what, about 3 years back? Around 2022.
Exactly. And the first version, well, it had that classic Subaru all-wheel drive, which people liked. But let's be honest, the range and maybe the charging speed, they weren't quite top of the class.
Right. So the mission for this Whip Check is pretty clear. We're going to break down what's actually changed for 2026.
Yep. Dig into whether these updates tackle those earlier issues and, if it makes the Solterra a stronger contender now.
And we know you want the key info, like fast and clear. So that's what you'll get, the stuff that really matters, without getting bogged down.
And there's quite a bit to cover. We're talking more power, definitely more range, faster charging finally, and a bit of a design refresh too.
Okay, let's jump in. Performance first.
Sounds good. So the standard 2026 Solterra, the horsepower is up a bit. It's now 233 horsepower.
Okay, up from what, about 215 before?
Yeah, exactly. Still got the dual motor setup, Subaru's EAWD, as they call it. And the ground clearance hasn't changed, still 8.3 inches, so, it's still got that Subaru capability for lighter trails and stuff.
But the big news on performance seems to be this new XT trim.
Oh, yeah. That's where they've really cranked it up. We're looking at 338 horsepower for the XT.
Wow, 338. That's a big jump.
It is, and Subaru's estimating a 0 to 60 time under 5 seconds for that one.
Under 5. That makes it like one of the quickest Subarus ever, right?
Pretty much, yeah. It definitely signals they're looking at the performance EV space more seriously.
What do you think that XT trim says about kind of where Subaru sees this car going?
Well, putting out a version with that much power, it suggests they're not just aiming for the practical EV buyer anymore. They want a piece of that performance electric SUV market. It addresses a gap maybe they had initially.
Makes sense. We should probably mention, though, these horsepower numbers are still Subaru's estimates, right? They could shift slightly before launch.
A good point. Always subject to final certification and all that.
Okay, so performance is up, especially with the XT. Now let's talk about range. That was a big one for the original Solterra. People felt it lagged behind.
Definitely. And that's probably the area, or one of the main areas they've focused on. The battery capacity is up to 74.7 kilowatt hours.
Okay, 74.7. The old one was around 72, give or take, depending on the source.
Yeah, some said 71.8, some 72.8, but somewhere around there. So this is a noticeable increase.
And what does that translate to in terms of, how far you can actually drive it?
Well, the official EPA numbers aren't out yet, but Subaru's saying over 285 miles. Some sources are even whispering closer to 300.
That's a huge improvement. The old one was what, 220-something miles?
Yeah, EPA rated 222 to 227 miles, depending on the trim. So going from that to potentially close to 300, that's significant.
That feels like it removes a major barrier for a lot of people. That kind of range makes it much more competitive.
Absolutely. It directly tackles one of the biggest criticisms, addresses that range anxiety head-on.
Okay, so better range. What about plugging it in? Charging was another area that needed some love.
Right, and they've made some really key changes here. First off, the big one probably. It now has the NACS port, the North American Charging Standard.
Ah, the Tesla plug.
So that means
you get access to the Tesla supercharger network right out of the box, which, for anyone doing road trips or just wanting more fast charging options, is a massive win.
yeah, that network availability is a huge convenience factor, no question.
Definitely. And beyond just the plug type, they've also upped the DC fast charging speed. It can now take up to 150 kilowatts.
Up from 100 kilowatts before, right?
Correct. So charging from 10% to 80% should now take under 35 minutes, Subaru says, which is, getting much closer to the competition.
That's a lot better, yeah.
Yeah.
Makes those quick top-ups on the road much more practical. But maybe the unsung hero here is the onboard level 2 charger for home charging.
Oh, what did they do there? The old one was kind of slow, wasn't it?
It was, frankly, painfully slow. 6.6 kilowatts. Just not great for overnight charges if you arrived home low.
Okay, so the new one.
The 2026 model, it can handle up to 22 kilowatts for level 2 AC charging.
22? Whoa! That's a massive difference. What does that actually mean for someone charging at home?
It means if you have the right home setup, like a powerful enough wall charger, you can potentially charge the car like 3 times faster overnight. It drastically cuts down home charging times.
Wow. Okay, so for you listening, if you mainly charge at home, that upgrade alone could be a huge quality of life improvement.
Exactly. It makes living with the EV day-to-day just that much easier. Takes away a real pain point.
All right, power, range, charging. All significant improvements. Let's pivot to how it looks. Has the design changed much?
Yeah, there's a noticeable refresh, especially at the front. It looks, sleeker, I'd say.
How so? What specifically changed?
Well, you've got new LED headlights. They've integrated the accent lights and turn signals within them. And interestingly, the Subaru word mark on the front now glows instead of the usual oval badge.
A glowing word mark. Okay, that's different.
Yeah, and a new bumper design plus updated wheel options. You can get 18s or 20s.
Any sign of fog lights? I noticed they seem missing in pictures.
Good eye. Yeah, traditional fog lights seem to be gone on this refresh. Maybe
Yeah.
integrated elsewhere or just deemed unnecessary with the new headlight tech.
Interesting. What about the back?
Similar theme.
Yeah.
A big, bold Subaru word mark across the tailgate instead of the badge. But they did keep that distinctive roof spoiler, which I think works well in this car.
And I saw something about the fenders. Less plastic cladding. That was a complaint for some people in the first one.
Yes, that's a key change. On certain colors, white, gray, and black, you can now get body-colored fenders. It gives it a much more sort of urban or premium look.
Less rugged, maybe.
Yeah, perhaps. Less like an Outback, more refined. On the other colors, the fenders will be gloss black instead of that textured plastic. So definitely a reduction in the amount of cladding overall.
That sounds like a good move aesthetically. Anything else on the exterior?
Just that the charge port has moved. It's now on the passenger side front fender, likely had to move it to accommodate the NACS plug design.
Makes sense. Okay, let's move inside. What's new in the cabin?
Quite a few updates here too. The center console has been reshaped. And the big thing you'll notice is the infotainment screen.
Bigger screen.
Much bigger. It's now a 14-inch touchscreen, up from 12.3 inches before.
14 inches, wow. Does that have the essentials? Wireless CarPlay, Android Auto.
Yep, both wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are included. And crucially, they've kept physical dials for the climate control.
Oh, thank goodness.
And a proper volume knob, too. It feels quite intuitive, kind of Lexus-like in that regard. The system itself is a version of Toyota's latest interface.
That blend of a big screen with physical controls for core stuff, it's usually a good combo. What about safety tech?
Subaru's EyeSight system is standard. So you get adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring, emergency braking, all that typical stuff.
And I heard something about charging inside the car.
Yes. Big news for Subaru fans, it has 2 wireless smartphone charging pads in the center console area. A first for the brand.
2. Finally. No more fighting over the charger.
Exactly. The instrument panel in front of the driver has also been tweaked. It still uses that 7-inch display, but the plastic surround is much cleaner, more streamlined now.
So visually tidier up front?
Definitely. They kept the Squircle steering wheel that came in for 2024.
Yeah.
And the panoramic glass roof is still there, but still doesn't open, unfortunately.
And still no traditional glove box, right? Because of that knee warming thing.
Correct. That quirky feature, or lack thereof, remains. Storage is handled by the center console and other bins.
About the seats, any upgrades there?
Yeah, updated seat designs. You can get 2-tone leather options now.
Yep.
And better adjustability of the driver's seat can be up to 10-way power adjustable with memory.
Passenger side, too?
Yep, 8-way power for the passenger. Plus, heated and ventilated front seats are available, which adds a nice premium touch.
Okay. Sounds pretty comfy up front. What about the folks in the back?
Rear seat space seems pretty similar to before, which was decent. Around 35 inches of legroom, estimated. The flat floor is nice for the middle passenger.
Any features back there?
Yeah, the seats can recline slightly. You get rear air vents, which is good. 2 USB charging ports, and available 3-level heated outboard seats.
Heated rear seats, nice.
Plus a fold-down center armrest with cup holders and a little spot for a phone. Pretty practical back there.
And cargo space, still usable.
Seems about the same. Around 30 cubic feet behind the second row, and that expands to roughly 60 cubic feet if you fold the seats down. So pretty standard for this size of SUV. Oh, and there's a 120-volt outlet back in the cargo area, too.
Handy for camping gear or tailgating, maybe?
Could be, yeah.
Now, it's worth reminding everyone, the Solterra shares its bones with the Toyota BZ4X.
Right, that's right. They're built on the same platform. The BZ4X is getting some updates, too, but from what we're seeing, the Solterra's refresh seems a bit more comprehensive, especially that XT power boost and the 22-kilowatt charging.
And how has the Solterra been doing in the market? Did people buy the first one despite the initial criticisms?
You know, surprisingly well, actually. Sales saw a pretty big jump last year. Subaru sold over 12,000 of them. in the U.S.
12,000. Okay, so there's definitely interest there.
Yeah, seems like Subaru loyalists were willing to give it a try, and maybe the all-wheel drive and brand reputation helped. It suggests the market is warming up to it.
So the big question for potential buyers then, pricing and when can they get this updated 2026 version?
Well, official 2026 pricing is still under wraps. Subaru says that'll come later this year.
But any clues, what did the 2025 cost?
The 2025 model, especially after a price cut they did recently, started around $39,915. So it's reasonable to guess the base 2026 might land somewhere in that ballpark.
And the new XT trim, with all that extra power.
That one will definitely be pricier. I wouldn't be shocked if it pushes close to, or maybe even slightly over, the $50,000 mark. But that's just speculation for now.
Okay. And availability. When do they start building them?
Production is slated to begin sometime this summer. So realistically, you'll probably start seeing them arrive at dealerships later in the year, maybe fall 2025.
Got it. So to wrap up this whip check then, it really feels like the 2026 Solterra is taking some pretty major steps forward.
Absolutely. It seems like Subaru listened very carefully to the feedback on the original. They've specifically targeted those weak spots.
Yeah.
Power, range, and particularly the charging speeds.
And the design tweaks and interior tech upgrades just add to that.
Exactly. It makes it feel like a much more complete and, frankly, more competitive package this time around.
So for you, the listener, what this means is the 2026 Solterra looks set to be a much stronger player in that electric SUV field, especially if you're already drawn to Subaru or if you need that all-wheel drive capability in a practical EV. This version seems much more compelling.
Yeah, the improved performance, the much better range, the significantly faster charging both DC and AC ticks a lot more boxes now.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How do these kinds of big improvements change your own view on EVs, or maybe even your feelings about a brand like Subaru stepping up its EV game?
It's definitely food for thought. Are these the kinds of changes that would make you consider an electric Subaru now if you weren't before?
And hey, if this whip check helped you get up to speed quickly on the new Solterra, do us a favor and hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next one. We'll keep bringing you these quick takes on important new models.
Absolutely. Which leads us to our final thought for you to chew on. With all these pretty substantial upgrades we've talked about, is the 2026 Solterra finally the electric Subaru that the fans, the enthusiasts have really been waiting for?